Look at the desk in front of you. Or, I don't know, the steering wheel in your hands right now.
Yeah, or even your own arm.
Exactly. I mean, if you ask any physicist, they will tell you that the solid matter you are looking at is basically 99.9999999% empty space.
Right, which is a fun party fact.
Yeah, you probably already knew that. But here's the part that usually keeps people grounded, right? The remaining tiny fraction, that 0.00000000001%, is made of subatomic particles that are actually making up the stuff of reality, and we assume they're at least solid physical things.
We really do. We desperately want them to be solid.
We do. Think back to your high school chemistry class. You probably had that plastic model on the desk. You know the one.
Oh, yeah? The nucleus in the center and
Yeah.
those little wire hoops holding the electrons?
Yes. We were taught to picture the electron as this tiny, solid, negatively charged billiard ball zipping around in a neat little orbit. It's clean, it's mechanical, and honestly, it is deeply comforting.
It is entirely comforting. I mean, we are macroscopic creatures, right? We demand that our microscopic world makes macroscopic
Wait,
sense.
so we want to touch things.
Exactly. When we touch a table, it pushes back. So we want to be able to point to a fundamental particle and say, well, there it is. It has a physical boundary. It's a discrete thing, just like a microscopic marble.
Exactly. But what if I told you that the tiny physical billiard ball holding your desk together doesn't actually exist?
Which is a huge claim to make.
It is. But today, we are taking a deep dive into a stack of source material that completely obliterates that high school model. We are exploring a highly detailed, frankly radical framework by George James Dukas. It's called Transdimensional Unified Field Theory.
Or TDUFT for sure.
Right, TDUFT. Our mission today is to decode what this theory claims is the true identity of the electron. And if Dukas is right, the electron isn't a tiny ball of matter at all. It is, well, a mathematical exhaust.
A mathematical exhaust. That is such a wild concept.
It really is. The paper defines it as a stable, low-tier resonance of the infinite fissile fractal field.
Which is basically the absolute definition of a paradigm shift. I mean, if you fundamentally redefine the electron, you have to redefine all of chemistry.
All of biology, too.
Yeah, and ultimately what the word solid even means.
So whether you are a hardcore physics enthusiast brushing up on alternative frameworks or just someone who is insanely curious about the true nature of reality, stick with us. Because this deep dive is going to fundamentally change how you view your own physical body.
It really will.
Now, to get us in the right headspace, the source material includes this striking visual that I really want to unpack first. Imagine a seemingly infinite row of golden Egyptian obelisks.
Okay.
They are towering, covered in intricate ancient hieroglyphs, and they are standing on a perfectly reflective surface.
Like a mirror.
Exactly like a mirror. And when you look down at that reflection, instead of seeing the ground or the bottom of the obelisks, you see a cosmic, starry, Milky Way sky stretching down into an infinite abyss.
It's a beautiful image.
It's stunning. But why on earth is this the metaphor for a hard physics paper?
Well, because it perfectly captures the core mathematical architecture of TDUFT. That image is a direct representation of what the theory calls the ether lattice.
The ether lattice. Okay, break that down for me.
So in standard physics, we tend to think of reality as a stage, like a void, just empty space.
Right, a big empty box.
Yeah. And particles are the actors that have been dropped into the scene to bump into each other. TDUFT totally rejects that.
Okay, so what is the stage then?
In this framework, reality is an infinite, geometric, reflecting fractal substrate.
That is a lot of big words.
I know. Let's go back to the visual. The obelisks covered in hieroglyphs represent the foundational mathematics of reality. It's the code, the structure itself.
Okay, and the reflection.
The perfectly reflective surface represents the dual conjugate nature of the universe, meaning every structural element has a mathematical mirror image.
Oh, I see.
So in this infinite field of reflecting golden obelisks, the electron isn't an actor dropped onto a stage. It is a specific, stable point of vibration, a resonance.
A resonance born from the architecture of the stage itself.
Precisely.
I'm trying to wrap my head around that. You are saying the electron isn't a physical object placed into space. It's just a specific way that space itself is vibrating.
Yes. Even the word vibrating can be misleading if you picture like a physical string shaking.
Right, like a guitar string.
Exactly. It's not that. It is a geometric resonance. To really grasp it, we have to look at the numbers. And the source material begins by basically throwing out the entire standard toolkit of physics.
Which is such a bold move. I mean, usually when we build physical models, we start with primitives, right? Things like mass, charge, length, time.
Standard building blocks, yeah.
Right. But TDUFT tosses those in the trash, and it replaces them with two very specific, very famous numbers, phi and psi. Let's talk about these because they are the foundation of everything we are going to cover today.
Right. Let's start with phi, represented by the Greek letter. Numerically, it's approximately 1.618.
The golden ratio.
Universally known as the golden ratio, yes. Yeah. It has been studied for millennia. You see it in the spiral of a nautilus shell.
Oh, and the arrangement of leaves on a stem, right?
Yeah, the proportions of classical architecture, spiral galaxies, you name it. But in TDUFT, phi isn't just a pretty proportion.
It's more structural.
Exactly. It represents velocity, expansion, and additive geometry. It is the outward push of reality.
It's like the universe stepping on the gas pedal.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
It's additive. You take a piece of geometry, you add to it, it grows, it expands outward.
Okay, but a universe that only expands mathematically would just, what, fly apart?
It would fly apart into infinite chaos instantly.
Right. And that brings us to its mathematical partner, its conjugate, which is psi.
Yes, psi.
Which is roughly 0.618.
Correct. So phi is the outward additive expansion. Psi is the inward multiplicative contraction, where phi represents velocity and outward geometry. Psi represents time, compression, and wave behavior.
So these aren't just interesting numbers you find in a math textbook.
No. In TDUFT, they are the fundamental opposing structural forces of reality itself.
The accelerator and the brakes.
Exactly. And they come together to form what Dukas calls the eternum nexus.
The eternum nexus. I have to say, it sounds incredibly dramatic.
It sounds like a sci-fi movie.
It really does. But looking at the source material, it's actually a unification equation. The text shows how this nexus brings together the additive geometry of phi and the multiplicative wave of psi through something called zero separation.
Which is a critical departure from modern theoretical physics.
Because modern physics is pretty fractured right now, isn't it?
It is highly fractured. We have quantum mechanics to describe the tiny stuff, right? The subatomic world.
Right.
And then we have general relativity to describe the massive stuff like gravity and planets.
Mm-hmm.
And they famously do not play well together.
They just don't mix.
No. Most unified field theories struggle because they're trying to stitch together these fundamentally different mathematical languages using external patches.
What do you mean by external patches?
Like they invent new dimensions or invisible particles just to force the math to work.
Oh, right. Like string theory needing, what, 11 dimensions just to make the equations balance?
Exactly. It feels a bit like duct tape. But TDUFT goes the opposite direction. It attempts to generate the structure of reality from the inside out.
Starting with that pure self-similar relationship between expansion and contraction.
Yes. The eternum nexus is the idea that real, measurable geometric structure can be produced entirely by the tension between phi pushing out and psi pulling in.
And this brings us to an equation in the text that actually made me laugh when I first read it.
Really? Why?
Because it's so simple. It almost looks like a typo compared to the massive chalkboard equations we usually see in physics. It's this. Phi squared minus phi minus 1 equals 0.
Right. Phi squared minus phi minus 1 equals 0.
Yes. And the text describes this as the pure structural core of the universe.
Because it is the mathematical definition of the golden ratio, just rewritten as a quadratic equation.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Let's think about what that means. Phi is the only positive number in existence where if you score it, meaning you multiply it by itself, and then you subtract the number itself and then subtract 1, you are left with exactly 0.
Wow.
No other number does this. It is a mathematical identity of perfect, unassailable balance.
Okay, I follow the math, but I have to push back here.
Go for it.
Math is abstract, you know. Physics is physical. My coffee mug has actual mass. So if phi is the accelerator and psi is the brakes, how does a math equation that literally equals 0 create a physical electron?
That is the big question.
Right. I mean, 0 is nothing. How do we get the mass of a particle from an equation that perfectly balances out to a giant goose egg?
That is the exact question you should be asking. And it is the pivot point where TDUFT crosses from pure mathematics into physical reality.
Okay, so how does it work?
We have to redefine how we think about 0. In Western thought, we usually treat 0 as a void, like an empty box.
Yeah, nothingness.
But in this geometric framework, the 0 in that equation isn't an empty void. It is a state of perfect, undisturbed equilibrium.
Equilibrium?
Think of a perfectly still pond. It's totally flat. The surface variance is 0. But the water is still there.
Okay, I like that analogy. The pond isn't empty, it's just perfectly balanced.
Right. Now, in TDUFT, the physical mass of the electron doesn't come from that pure zero-state core.
Wait, it doesn't.
No, because you're right. Pure equilibrium has no physical manifestation. If the universe was just pure phi squared minus 5 minus 1 equals 0, nothing would physically exist.
Then where does the mass come from?
The mass of the electron comes from how the universe reacts to that core. It comes from a concept the text calls the mass shadow.
The mass shadow. Okay, I want to spend a lot of time on this because this is where the billiard ball model gets completely destroyed.
Absolutely shattered.
The sources explain that the electron's mass is generated by a damping or attenuation series. I need you to translate that into plain English for me. What is a mathematical damping series, and how does it create physical weight?
Let's use another analogy. Let's upgrade our pond to a massive, incredibly tense drumhead.
Okay, a drumhead.
This drumhead represents the infinite phi-psi geometric field. Now, the ternum nexus, that foundational tension between expansion and contraction, creates a perturbation, a strike on the drumhead.
Like a vibration.
Exactly. Now, what happens when you strike a highly tense drumhead?
The sound and the vibration naturally want to echo outward.
Right. In a purely expansive phi-driven mathematical space, that vibration would echo outward into infinite complexity. It would generate higher and higher energy modes forever, literally tearing the drumhead apart.
So it would just be infinite chaos, runaway energy.
Yes. But the universe has a built-in geometric mechanism to prevent this infinite chaos. The theory calls it infinite harmonic attenuation.
Infinite harmonic attenuation.
In physics terms, it's basically a geometric form of entropy.
So it's like a cosmic shock absorber.
Precisely. When the vibration tries to run away toward infinity, the psi-dominated contraction, the brakes we talked about, clamps down on it.
Oh.
It dampens the waves.
Oh, I see.
Because the core universe equation equals 0, the pure theoretical electron at its absolute resting state wants to sit exactly on this universal identity of 0.
The theory labels that resting state as D0, right?
Yes, D0. But to exist in physical reality, the resonance has to be damped or contained by this mathematical shock absorber.
Wait, so you're saying the mass of the electron, the actual physical weight of the particle that makes up my body, isn't a solid thing.
No.
It's the residual energy left over from the universe hitting the brakes on a math equation.
Yes. The mass shadow is the mathematical exhaust of this damping process.
That is wild.
The electron's physical mass is a tiny, residual mathematical correction. It is the physical manifestation of the field clamping down on a geometric resonance to keep it from exploding into infinity.
Okay, that crosses the line from physics into metaphysics for me a little bit.
Oh, so?
You're telling me a math equation has exhaust. How can an abstract concept have a physical shadow?
Because in TDUFT, geometry is the fundamental reality. The physical universe is emergent from the geometry, not the other way around.
Geometry comes first.
Always. What we experience as mass is simply our macroscopic translation of geometric resistance. The universe is resisting infinite expansion, and that resistance manifests to us as the mass of an electron.
Okay, I think I'm grasping it. Mass is just geometric resistance. But if it's just resistance, why is the electron so stable?
What do you mean?
Well, an electron doesn't decay. In standard physics, electrons are virtually immortal. If it's just a vibration being clamped down on, shouldn't it eventually fizzle out?
That is where the rigor of Duca's math comes in. What's fascinating here is that for this theory to work, a particle that does not decay in the physical world must correspond to a mathematical series that perfectly converges.
Converges.
Have you ever encountered convergence series in calculus?
Yeah, it's like if you walk halfway to a wall and then halfway again and then halfway again. You are taking an infinite number of steps, but you never actually go past the wall. The distance converges to a finite limit.
Exactly. The sum of an infinite number of decreasing fractions equals a finite, solid number.
Okay.
In TDUFT, the mathematical attenuation series that creates the mass shadow is an absolutely convergent series.
Oh, wow.
The absolute mathematical convergence of this damping process guarantees that the physical electron is stable. It puts a hard mathematical ceiling on the energy.
I really want you, the listener, to pause and think about what that implies for a second. Your body is made of cells. Those cells are made of molecules. Those molecules are made of atoms. And those atoms are held together by the chemical bonds formed entirely by electrons.
All of it.
The only reason your physical body doesn't spontaneously dissolve into a burst of infinite cosmic noise right now is because this specific golden ratio-based mathematical equation rapidly converges. You are quite literally held together by a mathematical limit.
Is a profound shift in perspective, isn't it?
It is mind-blowing.
You are not built of tiny, indestructible rocks. You are a biological machine built out of self-stabilizing geometric chords.
Okay, my mind is thoroughly blown, but I have a practical question.
Sure.
If the electron isn't a physical billiard ball, but rather this converging geometric mass shadow, where exactly is it? Because it's clearly not just floating in a three-dimensional void. To understand how this impacts the rest of the universe, we have to talk about the architecture of the TDUFT model.
We do. And this requires us to conceptualize reality in a totally new way.
Okay.
TDUFT divides reality into a three-tiered lattice.
Hmm.
This structure is absolutely crucial for understanding why the electron behaves the way it does, and honestly, why it is the most important particle in the universe.
The three tiers. The text lists them as the ether tier, the atomic tier, and the nuclear tier.
Yes.
All right, let's walk through these step by step. The basement level is the ether tier. This is the foundational fractal substrate we talked about at the very beginning with the golden obelisks, right?
Yes. In the ether tier, there are no physical atoms. There are no molecules. There is no chemistry whatsoever.
So what is it?
It is pure field dynamics. It's the realm of unmanifested geometry. Here, the electron doesn't even look like a particle. It doesn't have physical properties like we understand them.
Then what is it at that level?
It is just a resonance address.
The resonance address.
Right? A specific, stable coordinate within the infinite fractal geometry of the phi-psi field. It's the pure energetic blueprint of the electron before it gets heavy, before it has mass.
So it's just a line of code in the basement.
A very precise line of code, yeah.
Okay. Then we take the stairs up to the main floor, which is the atomic tier.
Right.
This is where things start to look a bit more familiar to chemists, I assume, but with a massive mathematical twist.
Huge twist.
This tier is governed by what the theory calls the d-coordinate system, and the source material stresses this heavily. The electron's mass is the absolute zero-point reference for this entire scale.
It is the anchor.
Explain the d-coordinate to me, because looking at the equation, it involves logarithms, and I know that's where a lot of people just zone out.
Sure, let's break it down so it makes perfect physical sense. The equation for the atomic tier is d equals the logarithm base phi of m divided by m sub e.
Okay, let's unpack that. So d is the coordinate dimension, right?
Right.
And m is the mass of whatever particle or atom you are actually looking at. And m sub e is the mass of the electron.
Correct. And you are taking the logarithm base phi of that ratio.
Why a logarithm, though? What is a logarithm physically doing here?
Well, a linear scale, like a ruler, just adds 1 inch, 2 inches, 3 inches. But a logarithmic scale deals in multipliers, in scaling factors.
Like the Richter scale for earthquakes.
Exactly. The Richter scale is logarithmic. A magnitude 6 earthquake isn't just one step worse than a 5. It's 10 times more powerful.
Right.
By using a logarithmic scale base phi, TDUFT is stating that the mass of atomic elements doesn't just linearly pile up. It scales geometrically according to the golden ratio.
Okay, that makes sense.
But the most vital part of that equation is the fraction inside the parenthesis, m divided by m sub e.
The mass of the object divided by the mass of the electron. Why is that specific division so important?
Because of how logarithms work.
Yeah.
Think about it. What happens if the object you are measuring is the electron itself?
Oh, then m equals m sub e.
Right.
You are dividing the electron's mass by the electron's mass. Any number divided by itself is 1.
And what is the logarithm of 1 in any base?
It's 0.
Exactly. When you measure the electron against itself, the d-coordinate is perfectly 0. d0.
Wow.
The electron sits at the absolute ground floor of the atomic universe. It is the anchor. Every single atom, every molecule, every bit of chemistry that happens in the universe inherits its geometric scaling from the mass shadow of the electron.
That is incredibly elegant.
It really is.
The electron defines the scale of the universe by being its own 0 point. It is the metric ruler by which all other atomic mass is measured.
Precisely.
Okay, so that's the atomic tier, the main floor. But then we have the penthouse, the nuclear tier. Ah, yes.
This is the realm of the heavy hitters, the protons and neutrons, which the theory calls baryonic shells.
Yes. The nuclear tier operates on its own incredibly complex geometric rules, which are dominated by phi expansion.
The outward push.
Right. The proton is massive compared to the electron, so it lives high up on the d-coordinate ladder.
But here is the critical rule that TDUST establishes, and this is what really caught my eye in the reading. The electron is the only particle that spans all three of these tiers.
That is its absolute monopoly.
It's like the electron is the only employee in the cosmic corporation with a master key card.
I love that analogy.
Think about it. It works in the basement, the ether tier, where the raw mathematical code and geometry are generated.
Yes.
It works in the main office, the atomic tier, where its mass literally anchors the entire d-coordinate scale for every atom in existence.
Right.
And it structurally influences the executive boardroom, the nuclear tier, by setting the geometric boundaries that dictate how nuclear shells close, even though it doesn't actually live inside the nucleus. No other particle has this level of clearance. The proton only dictates the nuclear tier. I mean, it gives the atom its identity, but it doesn't stand down into the ether in the same foundational way.
What about photons?
Photons only mediate force between things, but the electron is the universal translator. It is the structural hinge that allows the infinite abstract ether field to manifest as measurable physical atomic reality.
So it's the bridge.
Yes. Without the electron spanning all three tiers, the universe would just be unmanifested math on one end and completely disorganized, unanchored nuclear sludge on the other.
Okay, I love the master keycard analogy, but let's push it further. For a single employee to run between the basement, the main office, and the boardroom, they can't just stand still, right?
No, they have to move.
They have to use the stairs, they have to be able to move and change states. So how does the electron actually do that in this rigid geometric model? Because chemistry relies on electrons moving around, binding to other atoms, jumping between energy levels.
And that brings us to one of the most fascinating mechanisms in the theory, the dimensional ladder.
The dimensional ladder.
We already established that the absolute resting state of the electron, its baseline anchor, is d0.
Right.
Mathematically, that's our phi squared minus phi minus 1 identity minus the damping series. But to participate in an atomic shell-like, to become part of a working atom like hydrogen or carbon, it has to undergo a dimensional lift.
It has to climb the stairs.
Yes.
And the source material represents this lift with a piece of math so simple, I honestly thought I was missing something. To get the electron into an excited atomic state, the equation just adds a +2 to the core identity. It goes from D0 to D2.
It seems almost absurdly simple, especially when we are used to quantum mechanics equations taking up an entire whiteboard.
Right, just +2.
But the brilliance is in the constraint. Ask yourself, why is it a +2? Why not a +1? Or +1.5?
I assume because if you add 1, it ruins the math.
It ruins the symmetry. Remember, the electron is built on the conjugate pair of phi and psi. In TDUFT, adding 2 is the minimal allowed dimensional elevation in the D ladder that perfectly preserves the underlying phi identity and symmetry of the field.
Oh, I see.
If you added just 1, you would break the geometric symmetry of the resonance. The electron would no longer balance the expansion and contraction forces.
Then what would happen to it?
It would destabilize and vanish. By jumping by exactly 2, the electron retains its universal geometric signature even when it is excited and interacting with a proton.
So the dimensional ladder can only be climbed 2 steps at a time. It goes D0, D2, D4, D6, and so on.
Exactly.
But I have to play devil's advocate here for a second.
Please do.
So it jumps by 2s. Why should I, or anyone listening, actually care? What does a +2 dimensional lift mean for my daily life?
Let's connect this to the bigger picture. You are looking at the foundational geometric reason for the quantization of nature.
Quantization, can you explain that briefly?
Sure. In the early 20th century, physicists like Niels Bohr realized something baffling about atoms. When an electron orbits a nucleus, it doesn't orbit just anywhere, like a satellite around the Earth.
Right.
It only exists in very specific, rigid energy levels. Shells. It can be in shell 1 or shell 2, but it can never, ever be in shell 1.5.
It's just forbidden.
Yes. If it gains energy, it instantly teleports, basically, to shell 2. This is called a quantum leap.
Right, so the universe operates in discrete chunks, not a continuous sliding scale.
Exactly. But here is the secret standard physics doesn't like to talk about. For a century, quantum mechanics has just accepted this as an empirical rule.
Just a given.
Yeah, we measure it, we know it happens, but the standard model doesn't explain why energy is chunked like that. It just shrugs and says, well, that's just how the universe is.
But TDUFT does explain it.
PDUFT provides the geometric causality for why it is.
Oh, wow.
The atomic shells are discrete, stable levels, rather than a chaotic, continuous smear of energy, because the underlying geometry of the universe only allows resonances to stabilize at these specific +2 intervals.
That makes so much sense.
Right. If it tried to exist at a +1 or a +1.5 interval, the geometry wouldn't balance, the mass shadow would fail, and the particle would cease to exist.
So if this dimensional ladder didn't work exactly this way, jumping by twos, chemistry literally wouldn't exist.
Chemistry would be impossible. Atoms couldn't form stable bonds. Molecules wouldn't hold their shape.
Wait, really?
Absolutely. The fact that water is rigidly H2O and not some smeared, unstable soup of fluctuating hydrogen and oxygen is directly due to the electron being forced to jump by twos to maintain its Feces symmetry.
That is a massive aha moment for me. The seemingly arbitrary, weird rules of quantum mechanics aren't arbitrary at all. They are strictly enforced traffic laws dictated by the golden ratio.
They are.
The universe isn't weird, it's just geometrically strict.
Precise.
Okay, but here is where it gets really interesting for me. We have spent all this time establishing that the electron is this master key negative anchor of the atom, holding it all together with contractive force.
Yes.
But an atom isn't just an electron. What about the center? What about the positive core? How does TDUFT handle the nucleus, the proton?
This is where the theory provides a brilliant mirroring symmetry. TDUFT doesn't just explain the electron. It builds a parallel geometric structure for the proton and the neutron, creating what it calls the unified baryon equation.
Okay.
To understand the electron fully, we have to look at its mirror image.
Let's do it. Because in high school, they just tell you electrons are negative, protons are positive, opposites attract. Just memorize it for the test.
Right. Don't ask what?
Exactly. They treat charge like a physical substance, like painting one particle blue and another particle red. But TDUFT doesn't assign these charges arbitrarily, does it?
Not at all. In TDUFT, charge isn't a magical substance painted onto a particle. Charge is a geometric direction.
A direction.
Let's go back to the very beginning. What did we say phi and psi represent?
Phi is outward expansion, velocity. Psi is inward contraction, wave compression.
Exactly. The electron's negative charge arises completely naturally from the fact that it is a psi-dominated resonance.
Oh, I see where this is going.
It is rooted in the contractive direction of the fractal field. It is pulling inward, geometrically speaking. That inward geometric pull is what we physically measure and experience as negative charge.
Wait, so charge is just a directional flow?
Yes. Now look at the proton. The proton is the lightest stable resonance that arises from the phi-dominated expansion direction.
So its positive charge is literally the geometric opposite of the electron's contraction.
It is an outward additive flow.
So charge is just the universe breathing. The proton is breathing out, expanding. The electron is breathing in, contracting.
That is an excellent way to visualize it.
And what about the neutron? It has no charge. How does a geometric flame have no charge?
The neutron, as the text explicitly outlines, is a psi-balanced baryon. Yes. It incorporates both the expansion of phi and the contraction of psi in a very specific structural way that geometrically cancels out the directional flow.
So it's a tug-of-war that's perfectly tied.
Exactly. It renders the overall resonance neutral while still providing the massive structural weight necessary to hold the atomic nucleus together.
Speaking of massive structural weight, there is a number that has driven physicists completely crazy for decades.
I know exactly the one you mean.
It's the mass ratio between the proton and the electron. If you put a proton on a scale, it is approximately 1,836 times heavier than an electron.
Right.
It is a strict empirical fact. We measure it constantly. But standard physics has absolutely no idea why it's exactly 1836.
None.
It's considered one of the great unsolved mysteries of the standard model. It just is. But TDUFT actually calculates this, doesn't it?
It does. And it's one of the theory's most stunning achievements.
Hmm.
In TDUFT, the 1836-to-1 ratio is not a random empirical coincidence that we just have to accept.
What is it then?
It is a pure geometric projection of the phi and psi operators interacting.
Break that down for me. How do expansion and contraction give us exactly 1836?
Think about what the particles are built from.
Mm-hmm.
The proton is heavy because it is built from the expansive additive phi geometry. It's the universe stepping on the gas, adding geometric complexity.
Okay, adding mass.
Right. The electron is incredibly light because it is heavily damped by the contractive, multiplicative psi geometry.
The brakes.
It's the universe slamming on the brakes, squeezing the resonance down to a minimal shadow. When you take the mathematical equation for the proton's geometric expansion and divide it by the equation for the electron's contractive damping, that massive 1836 ratio naturally falls out of the math.
Just automatically.
Automatically.
So the mass difference isn't arbitrary. It's just the natural ratio of how much the universe wants to expand versus how much it wants to contract.
Exactly. The ratio is structurally baked into the very fabric of reality.
Okay, I have to stop here. A theory this beautiful, with everything perfectly balanced between expansion and contraction, protons breathing out, electrons breathing in. It's great on paper. Philosophy is fun and math is elegant. But physics is brutal. Physics doesn't care if a theory is pretty. Physics demands hard proof.
Absolutely.
If TDUFT is actually right, if it is accurately describing reality, it has to stack up against real, unforgiving experimental data.
And that brings us to the ultimate proving ground, the empirical crucible.
Right. Now, the source material is very clear that TDUFT isn't just philosophical musing. Duke has actually put this theory to the test. It has been rigorously calibrated against CODATA.
Which is the gold standard.
Right. Now, for those listening who aren't in a laboratory every day, CODATA stands for the Committee on Data for Science and Technology. They are the global authorities who publish the universally accepted, ultra-precise values for fundamental physical constants.
We're talking about precision measured out to 10 or 11 decimal places.
Yeah. If your theory is off by even a tiny fraction in the 8th decimal place, CODATA will ruthlessly expose it. You cannot fake your way past these numbers.
You really can't. Experimental physics has reached a point of astonishing precision. To give you context, measuring something to 1 part in 10 to the 11th power is like measuring the distance from New York to Los Angeles and being accurate to within the width of a human hair.
Wow, okay. So how did TDUFT do against the hair width test?
The manuscript includes an appendix that walks through a rigorous numerical consistency test. They took the TDUFT mathematical model, specifically a formulation called the entropy-inclusive low-d electron ansatz.
Okay, hold on. Entropy-inclusive low-d electron ansatz.
I know, it's a mouthful.
We promised to explain the jargon, so let's break that phrase down word by word because it sounds like a spell from Harry Potter.
Fair enough. Entropy-inclusive means the equation fully accounts for that infinite harmonic attenuation we talked about earlier.
The mathematical shock absorber that prevents infinite chaos.
Exactly. It includes that jamping.
Okay. And low-d.
Low-d just refers to the d-coordinate ladder. The electron is at d0, which is the lowest possible tier on the atomic scale.
Makes sense. And ansatz.
An ansatz is a mathematical term for an educated guess, or an initial assumption that you plug into an equation to see if it yields the correct result.
So the entropy-inclusive low-d electron ansatz is simply the complete TDUFT mathematical description of the electron's mass shadow plugged into a computer to see if it predicts reality.
That's perfectly stated, yes.
And did it.
It didn't just approximate reality. It successfully predicted the electron's exact mass, the Rydberg constant, and the hydrogen 1s-2s transition frequency to tolerances of 1 part in 10 to the 11th power.
1 part in 100 billion?
Yes. The relative residual error they report is astronomically small, something like negative 1.6 times 10 to the negative 11th.
Which is practically zero.
Basically. The predicted geometric mass of the electron lands incredibly close to the actual physical CODATA value, with a relative offset of just a microscopic fraction of a percent.
That's staggering. It means this abstract philosophy of golden ratios and mass shadows actually maps perfectly onto the real universe.
It demonstrates that the abstract phi-side damping structure is quantitatively viable.
You can actually use it.
Yes, you could embed this pure geometry into real-world hydrogen equations without producing mathematical contradictions or runaway terms or infinite loops. It actually works.
But the sources also highlight a specific historical chemistry anomaly that I find absolutely fascinating because it proves how the d-coordinate system, that logarithmic scale we talked about, interacts with the messy real world of geological time.
Oh, the mass reversals.
Let's talk about the mass reversals in the periodic table.
This is perhaps one of the most beautiful pieces of evidence for the theory because it solves a century-old mystery. Let's go back to the 19th century.
All right, time travel.
Dmitry Mendeleev is sitting at his desk playing a game of chemical solitaire with note cards. He is organizing all the known elements into what will become the periodic table.
A massive undertaking.
Huge. And his basic rule is simple. Organize them by their atomic mass. Lighter elements first, heavier elements later. Hydrogen is 1, helium is 2, lithium is 3, and so on.
Sounds completely logical.
But he ran into a few incredibly stubborn exceptions, where the chemical properties completely mismatched the atomic mass.
The classic example that the sources focus on is argon and potassium.
Right.
Argon has an atomic number of 18. It is a noble gas, meaning it doesn't react with anything.
Yeah.
Potassium is number 19. It is an alkali metal that explodes when you drop it in water.
Quite the difference.
Yeah. By all logic, based on their atomic numbers, potassium has more protons, so it should be heavier. But argon's atomic mass is roughly 39.9, and potassium's is 39.0. Argon is somehow heavier than the element that comes after it.
Right. If Mendeleev had stuck strictly to atomic mass, he would have put exploding potassium in the column with the inert noble gases and unreactive argon in the column with the exploding metals.
It would have ruined the entire table.
It would have made no chemical sense. So he basically just swapped them. He broke his own mass rule to make the chemical properties line up and told the scientific community to just trust him.
And for a long time, it was just considered a weird anomaly of nature. Now, in standard physics, they eventually figured out this is due to isotopes, right?
Yes. Standard physics explains that elements come in different isotopes versions of the atom with extra neutrons. Argon happens to have a very heavy, very abundant isotope in nature, which throws off the average weight.
But TDUFT takes this a massive step further. It integrates this anomaly directly into the foundational mathematics of the d-coordinate system.
It doesn't just excuse the anomaly, it predicts it.
How does it do that? Because up until now, we've talked about the d-coordinate as this perfect, rigid, geometric ladder.
The theory explains that the d-coordinate isn't based on a static, idealized mass. It uses an isotope-weighted average mass that is projected over geological time via radioactive decay.
Okay, I need you to unpack that. Projected over geological time. What does time have to do with the mass of an atom on my desk right now?
Everything, because the universe is dynamic. Look at potassium-40. It is a naturally occurring radioactive isotope. Over billions of years, it naturally undergoes beta decay and turns into argon-40.
Wait, so potassium literally turns into argon?
Yes. So over the lifespan of the Earth, the physical universe is literally shifting mass out of the potassium column and dumping it into the argon column.
Oh.
Argon is steadily accumulating these heavy isotopes, while potassium is steadily losing its heavier parent isotopes.
And because the d-coordinate, the fundamental geometric scale of the atomic tier, is literally defined as the logarithm of this mass, the d-coordinate naturally inherits this geological behavior.
Exactly. A logarithm is a time-averaging function by its very nature. The mass reversal between argon and potassium isn't an annoying glitch that TDUFT has to create a hack to fix.
The mass reversal is a direct mathematical confirmation of the theory's geometric rules.
Yes. The d-coordinate perfectly tracks the physical reality of radioactive decay and isotope abundance over billions of years.
That is the ultimate triumph for a new scientific theory, isn't it? When the things that used to be considered embarrassing anomalies or exceptions to the rule suddenly become the strongest pillars proving your core equations.
It turns a bug into a feature.
It really does. It proves that the framework is robust.
It validates that the electron, sitting all the way down there at the base of the d-coordinate as the zero-point reference, is successfully anchoring the messy, continuous physical mass of the decaying universe to the pristine, discrete, geometric shells of the atoms.
It is doing its job perfectly as the bridge particle.
Absolutely perfectly.
This has been an absolutely epic journey today. I mean, we started with an image of an infinite mirroring lattice of golden Egyptian obelisks stretching into the cosmos.
Which felt like poetry at the time.
It did, but it was just math. We took the most basic equation imaginable, the golden ratio equaling 0, and watched as it pushed back against the entropy of the universe to create a mathematical exhaust, a mass shadow.
The electron itself.
Right. And we saw how that tiny geometric shadow acts as the ultimate cosmic master key. It spans the ether, the atomic, and the nuclear tiers of reality.
It dictates the discrete quantum jumps of chemistry through the +2 lift.
And it perfectly tracks the geological decay of elements over billions of years.
It completely reframes our relationship with the material world. We are not living in a universe of solid mechanical parts just clicking together in a void.
Not at all.
We are living in a universe of pure dynamic geometry, where stability is just a perfectly balanced mathematical convergence.
And that leads me to a final provocative thought for you to take away from this deep dive. Think about your own brain for a second.
Oh, this is a good one.
Every thought you have ever had, every memory you cherish, every time you reach out to touch someone you love, every time you feel awe or sadness, all of it is driven by electrical impulses.
Yeah.
It is driven by electrons moving through the synapses of your neurons. If Dukas and TDUFT are right, if the electron is not a solid physical object, but just a stable, low-tier geometric resonance holding back infinite cosmic entropy, then what does that make us?
That is the question, isn't it?
Are we physical beings moving through a mechanical universe, or are we simply a highly complex, infinitely beautiful chord being played on the cosmic strings of the golden ratio?
That is the exact philosophical question this physics forces us to confront. If our physical foundation is nothing but a geometric resonance, then our consciousness itself is basically riding on the vibrations of the math.
It's enough to make you look at the solid desk in front of you entirely differently. Thank you for taking this deep dive with us today. Keep questioning the reality around you, keep looking for the geometry hidden in the noise, and we'll see you next time.